Ham Fixin's Nets, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5FC. This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
This is NV5F. I'm going to be the net control for Skynet this evening, and it is looking really stormy out, so I have switched to my attic antenna, and I wanted to know from anybody who could give me a radio check whether it sounds like this will be enough for me to run the net this evening. NV5F.
Zero FUR for V5F. You sound just fine here.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. It's a little J-pole that's in the attic, and I don't want to put more than about 40 or 50 watts through it. So if it sounds like it will be sufficient, then I will do it this way and stay safe. Thanks a lot, NV5F. And with that having been said, this is NV5F, Virginia. I will be net control for Skynet in a few minutes. So if anyone needs to use the repeater before 9 o'clock, please do so now, and we will start Skynet at 9. Thanks a lot, NV5F.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Good evening, everybody. This is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net call every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage you to participate and give comments and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from the net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of each transmission. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Look at the top of the page. There should be a headline for this evening's Skynet and the video link, and the check-in link will be there. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we continue to do that too for over-the-air and Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. Part 1 is general announcements. Part 2 is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through your telescope. Part 3 is National Space Society events. Part 4, recent astronomical discoveries. Part 5 is discussion topic of the evening. Part 6 is What's Up. Part 7 is space exploration and space history. Part 8 is Constellation of the Week. Part 9 is space launches of the week. And Part 10 is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. If there's a lot of time at the end, we might have time for astronomical Q&A or a 73 round, but usually we're right down to the wire. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via w5fc.org. So far, we have Tom, K5 ICX. We have Cody, K5MCD. We have Tony, NT5TM. Bill, W5BLT. We have me, NV5F. We have Antonio, AG9SG. We have Robert, AA5AH. We have Chaz and Bob the Cat, KF5JHA. We have Brenda, WV5OZL. And we have Bill, N5BB. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time check-ins. If you are a short time check-in for Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
K0FER, Chris, Southeast Dallas, mobile. Short time.
All right, we have K0FER, Chris, in Southeast Dallas, mobile. Thanks very much for checking in. Appreciate it. All right, next we have general check-ins. This is on-air, over-the-air check-ins. Anyone who is checking in for the net via regular RF check-in for Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Alpha Bravo 5, Delta Mike, Dustin in Dallas.
Okay, so far we've added KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch, KF5ZBL, Bill, also in Farmers Branch, and Alpha Bravo 5, Delta Mike, Dustin in Dallas. Any more RF check-ins for Skynet this evening? Call, name, and location.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Okay, we've added W5GUF, Gus in far, far northeast Dallas. Thank you, Gus. All right, let's see. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, next, Echolink check-ins. Last but never least, Echolink check-ins. Also, if there's any all-star check-ins, please come now. Call sign, name, and location from Echolink. Okay, hearing none from Echolink. I do see some people on over there. If you want to check in at any time via voice, just let me know, and I will formally check you into the net. All right. Next, we have free-for-all, all check-ins, all modes, anywhere, short time, long time, Echolink voice, whatever you want. Please come now. Call sign, name, and location. Alrighty, well, let's get started. First, we have general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Announcements. Please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, Tony, please go with your announcements.
Thank you, Virginia. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on Terry Gilliam's generational project, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which sort of came out in 2018 or 2019, depending on what country you're in, and was in production for more than 20 years. I haven't seen all of it. It sure is pretty, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. So join us tonight at 10:30, 10:35-ish, somewhere in there on this repeater. It's a really interesting movie by a really interesting director. The MCOM 101 net will be this Monday on this repeater at 7 p.m. local time. You don't have to be a member of any organization. You just have to have an interest in public service communication. There's always some good tip or trick or experience to talk about. Bring yours. We'd appreciate it. Also, one day from today, but in the morning, Moon Day will be celebrated at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. You can view their event calendar by going to flightmuseum.org. The AMSAT, Amateur Radio Satellite Corporation, and Dallas Amateur Radio Club are both planning to participate. Please watch W5FC.org for more information, hopefully coming soon. But it's not hard to figure out what to do. The event runs from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., but the Dallas Amateur Radio Club usually sets up starting at 9, and the event usually starts winding down at about 3. In the meantime, we answer lots of questions from the public. We get into the beautiful museum for free by wearing amateur radio gear that helps the volunteers know what we're doing. Wear a club hat or a polo shirt or something if you've got one. I mean, they're not super strict, but it makes it easier if you wear something with your call sign on it. We do have a featured astronaut speaker if you go to flightmuseum.org. I look just that ghastly when someone tells me to smile for a picture, so I sympathize with him. But that's not all. We also have Dr. Chaz and Dr. Billy giving presentations and other speakers and exhibits and events. So it's just, I always get a charge out of this event. I just love talking to kids about radio and science, and I love talking to their parents because often their parents are looking for interesting things to teach their kids. Talking to their parents. Anyway, so I don't have an exact schedule for you. I'm not a club officer this year, but it's going to be roughly 9 to 3 at the Frontiers of Flight Museum this Saturday. Please come out when you can, wear some amateur radio gear, and bring a smile. That's really all you need, although a handy talk here too, I guess, never hurt. Hope to see you there. Hope to hear you on the Afterglow discussion and on the MCOM 101 net this Monday. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. And this is Virginia, NT5F, Net Control for Skynet. And I will also be at Moon Day. And I'll be with AMSAT generally, but I'm kind of there for both. And it is a lot of fun. And always enjoy it a great deal. Okay. Let's see. Speaking of AMSAT, the AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you can check into the National AMSAT net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You'll need Echolink installed and to be registered with Echolink in order to hear this net. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. There's also a live audio link available on their website, www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. There are also 2 local nets available for AMSAT. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others who are checked into the net. The AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 MHz, PL tone 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom in 5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month, though, is DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East net that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington Club repeater, 147.14 MHz, PL tone 110.9. Positive offset. DARC hosts a number of nets during the week. I am not going to read all of these. We all are pretty familiar. If you are not, please go to W5FC.org and look at the section about nets, and it will talk to you about all of the nets. We have some kind of net every Monday night at 7. We have a couple of Sunday night meeting on the air nets. We have also races training nets. We've got national traffic nets every evening at 6:30, and of course we've got the Night of Nets, which is going on right now, which is TechNet at 7, Skynet at 9, and the Afterglow net at 9 or at 10:30. So speaking of the Afterglow net, it's time for tonight's Afterglow info. Tony has already mentioned the name of the movie, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, but let's check with Tom, our fearless Afterglow leader, K5ICX, and see what this movie's really about. Tom, will you please regale us with your very accurate synopsis in D5S?
Well, thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX Tom down in Corpus Christi. Toby Grummett stared at the DVD. It was a bargain bin special, only 43 million pesetas, about 19 cents in U.S. money. He sighed. On the outside it said, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, the movie he'd made some 10 years earlier. The name now scratched out, and in its place, Drink Coaster, handwritten on the cheap plastic case. Being a director was hard work. Many people didn't appreciate what he'd done, and this store was yet another example of the collateral abuse directors experienced, especially bad ones. But then Toby had an idea. What if I made Don Quixote a super action figure from the planet's best English 4, and he sang songs, just like Topal and Fiddler on the Roof, only with real notes. He was on to something. Join us tonight for The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from, as Tony mentioned, who knows exactly, over the last 30 years, but it came out in 2018 or 1917. We're not sure. But I saw it. It's a pretty good movie. There's a hot link in the on the website if you want to go and watch it, but it's a little over 2 hours long, so I don't think you got time. But maybe you can see it afterwards if you haven't already. I rather liked it. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Thanks, Tom. That was super accurate, except for that you called me Brenda at the beginning, which is fine, because I consider that a compliment, because Brenda's great. So, anyway, I did not get all the way through this movie, but I will still be on there tonight to talk about it, because I have a few observations. It kind of makes me think of what if Stanley Kubrick had taken from 1984 to make 2001, and then it would have been like 2001 and 2010 all together in one movie with lots of weird time lapses and stuff. Very interesting. Anyway, you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. We currently have the following people checked in via W5FC.org. Let me check and see if there's any people who have joined us on the website. Yes, we've added KG5LUG Brent in Carroll and N5OF Clay in Mesquite. So thank you for joining us on the website. And I will take any additional voice check-ins at this time. Any mode, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4 Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI Ted Dallas Low Power.
Okay, we've also added Ted, WB4MSI. Thank you for checking in. It's not Skynet without you. All right, next is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. When and where you can look through a telescope. This is our friend Chaz, KF5JHA. So take it away, Chaz.
Sorry, I had the wrong side of my radio queued up. Okay, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. On July the 25th is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting is held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and also held on Zoom. The featured speaker is going to be Dr. Stella Offner from UT Austin. Her topic is going to be AI data analysis. Could be interesting. Now, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night observing sessions in the Dallas area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, stargazing is held at Frisco. Guess what? Have you gone outside and taken a look? It's raining. At least it's raining here. In fact, the Dallas County is under a flash flood warning until midnight. So, yeah, we didn't have the observing session due to the weather. Okay. You can check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Oh, Net Control, are you going to bring your purple escort with you this year to Moon Day? This is KF5JHA.
Thank you, Chaz. And yes, there will be some kind of mascots, escorts, and general cute companions, as always. So be ready. All right, next we have National Space Society events and activities with Bill in 5BB. Let us know what's going on with the NSS North Texas.
Very good, Virginia. This is in 5BB. Bill, I happen to be the National Space Society North Texas Chapter Vice President and Membership Director. You can reach me at space@byrom.net, SPACE@BYROM.net. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next chapter meeting will be tomorrow, July the 13th. The speaker will be Neil Lockman, the CEO of Titan's Space Industries, who's developing all kinds of interesting vehicles to go into space. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact Bill in 5BB if you'd like to attend. Tomorrow will be a special meeting because our chapter won the Chapter of Excellence Award at the International Space Development Conference a few weeks ago in Florida. We'll have a cake. So come and have some cake as well as barbecue at the meeting. On July the 19th, that's right, that's coming up a week from today, the National Space Society North Texas chapter will participate in the Moon Day event. at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. We'll have a lot of people there from our chapter. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 8 people attended the last meeting, which was on June the 27th. The next Space Rendezvous will be held Friday evening, July 25th. It's always the last Friday evening of each month. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byram.net. Thank you very much. Back to you, Virginia. This is N5PD.
All righty, thank you, Bill. Appreciate the information. Sounds pretty interesting, and congratulations on the chapter award for this year. Okay, next we have Brenda, WB5OZL, with recent astronomical discoveries. Go ahead, Brenda.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled, NASA Probe Flies into the Sun and Captures the Origin of Solar Storms. On its record-breaking pass by the Sun late last year, NASA's Parker Solar Probe captured stunning new images from within the Sun's atmosphere. These newly released images, taking closer to the Sun than we've ever been before, are helping scientists better understand the Sun's influence across the solar system, including events that affect Earth. These images and other data are helping scientists understand the mysteries of the solar wind, which is essential to understanding its effects at Earth. On its record-breaking pass, well, gee, this thing is redundant. Sorry. Parker Solar Probe has once again transported us in the dynamic atmosphere of our closest star, said Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator, Science Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters in Washington. We are witnessing where space weather threats to Earth begin, with our eyes, not just with models. This new data will help us vastly improve our space weather predictions to ensure the safety of our astronauts and the protection of our technology here on Earth and throughout the solar system. Parker Solar Probe started its closest approach to the Sun on December 24, 2024, flying just 3.8 million miles from the solar surface. As it skimmed through the Sun's outer atmosphere, called the corona, and the days around the perihelion, it collected data with an array of scientific instruments, including the Wide Field Imager for Solar Probe, or WISPR. That's WISPR. The new WISPR images reveal the corona and solar wind, a constant stream of electrically charged particles from the Sun that rage across the solar system. The solar wind expands throughout the solar system with wide-ranging effects. Together with outbursts of material and magnetic currents from the Sun, it helps generate auroras, strip planetary atmospheres, and induce electric currents that can overwhelm power grids and affect communications on Earth. Understanding the impact of solar wind starts with understanding its origins at the Sun. I'm going to reset. The WISPR images give scientists a closer look at what happens to the solar wind shortly after it is released from the corona. The images show the important boundary where the Sun's magnetic field direction switches from northward to southward, called a heliospheric current sheet. It also captures the collision of multiple coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, the large bursts of charged particles that are a key driver of space weather for the first time in high resolution. In these images, we're seeing the CMEs basically piling up on top of one another, said Angelos Vorlidis, the WSPR instrument scientist at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, which designed, built, and operates the spacecraft in Laurel, Maryland. We're using this to figure out how the CMEs merge together, which can be important for space weather. When CMEs collide, their trajectory can change, making it harder to predict where they'll end up. Their merger can also accelerate charged particles and mix magnetic fields, which makes the CMEs effects potentially more dangerous to astronauts and satellites in space and technology on the ground. Parker Solar Probe's close-up views help scientists better prepare for such space weather effects at Earth and beyond. Going to reset. The solar wind was first theorized by preeminent heliophysicist Eugene Parker in 1958. His theories about the solar wind, which were met with criticism at the time, revolutionized how we see our solar system. Prior to Parker Solar Probe's launch in 2018, NASA and its international partners led missions like Mariner 2, Helios, Ulysses, Wind, and ACE that helped scientists understand the origins of the solar wind, but from a distance. Parker Solar Probe, named in honor of the late scientist, is filling in the gaps of our understanding much closer to the sun. At Earth, the solar wind is mostly a consistent breeze, but Parker Solar Probe found it's anything but at the sun. When the spacecraft reached 14.7 million miles from the sun, it encountered zigzagging magnetic fields, a feature known as switchbacks. Using Parker Solar Probe's data, scientists discovered that these switchbacks, which came in clumps, were more common than expected. When Parker Solar Probe first crossed into the corona, about 8 million miles from the sun's surface in 2021, it noticed the boundary of the corona was uneven and more complex than previously thought. As it got closer, Parker Solar Probe helped scientists pinpoint the origin of switchbacks at patches on the visible surface of the sun where magnetic funnels form. In 2024, scientists announced that the fast solar wind, one of two main classes of the solar wind, is in part powered by these switchbacks, adding to a 50-year-old mystery. However, it would take a closer view to understand the slow solar wind, which travels at just 220 miles per second, half the speed of the fast solar wind. The big unknown has been, how is the solar wind generated? How does it manage to escape the sun's immense gravitational pull? Understanding this continuous flow of particles, particularly the slow solar wind, is a major challenge, especially given the diversity of the properties of these streams. But with Parker Solar Probe, we're closer than ever to uncovering their origins of how they evolve. And this is kind of a long article, so I think I'll cut it off there. This is from ScienceDaily.com. You can go and read the whole article if you like. And so I'm going to turn it back to Nat. This is WV50ZL.
Okay, thanks so much, Brenda. Sounds very interesting. I always wondered about the difference between the two kinds of solar wind. Since space weather people talk about those different ones when they give reports. So thanks for that. That was great. Okay, and next is discussion topic of the evening, and that falls to me since I am net control. And this week I will discuss 3 short articles on the very newly discovered interstellar comet 3I Atlas. This is so new, it was discovered on July the 1st. This is a brand new interstellar object. I guess our theme for tonight is astronomical discoveries, because this one was discovered in less than 2 weeks ago. So we'll start with this one. Astronomers say new interstellar visitor 3I Atlas is very likely to be the oldest comet we have ever seen. This article is by Robert Lee, and it was published yesterday in Space Afterglow.com. So, let's go. The recently discovered interstellar visitor, 3I Atlas, may be one of the oldest comets ever seen by humanity. The object was already exciting to astronomers as only the third space object seen entering the solar system from beyond its limits, the other two being 1I Oumuamua, seen in 2017, and 2I Borisov, detected in 2019. However, new research has shown this potentially water ice-rich visitor could be even more extraordinary than initially believed. 3I Atlas could be around 3 billion years older than our 4.5 billion-year-old solar system, and thus older than any other comet ever observed. University of Oxford astronomer Matthew Hopkins is part of a team of scientists that thinks 3I Atlas, discovered on July 1st, 2025 by the Atlas Survey Telescope, is around 7 billion years old. All non-interstellar comets, such as Halley's Comet, formed at the same time as our solar system, so they are up to 4.5 billion years old, Hopkins said in a statement. But interstellar visitors have the potential to be far older, and of those known about so far, our statistical methods suggest that 3I Atlas is very likely to be the oldest comet we have ever seen. So what's the secret to the 3I Atlas's old age? Well, the key to the advanced age of 3I Atlas is the fact that it comes from a completely different region of the Milky Way than previous interstellar visitors. Based upon the steep trajectory that 3I Atlas appears to be taking through our galaxy, Hopkins and colleagues theorized that it originated in the Milky Way's thick disk of stars. The thick disk is a band of our galaxy's most ancient stars that sandwiches the thin disk, which formed more recently and contains our relatively young star, the Sun, and the solar system. This is an object from a part of the galaxy we've never seen up close before. University of Oxford astrophysicist Chris Lintott said, "We think there's a 2/3 chance this comet is older than the solar system and that it's been drifting through interstellar space ever since." If 3I Atlas originates from the Milky Way's thick stellar disk and thus formed around an ancient star, this also has implications for its chemical composition. Hopkins and crew suggest the interstellar interloper may be rich in water ice. As 3I Atlas gets closer to the Sun, it will get warmer. Frozen ices will turn to gas, a process called sublimation, and erupt from the surface of the comet. This outgassing will give 3I Atlas a cometary aura, or coma, and a bright tail, the familiar and distinctive characteristics of comets. Observations have already indicated that 3I Atlas is bursting to life with cometary activity. These observations also seem to indicate that 3I Atlas is bigger than previous interstellar invaders. 1I Oumuamua, that's a mouthful, and 2I Borisov. We're in an exciting time. 3I Atlas is already showing signs of activity. The gases that may be seen in the future as 3I Atlas is heated by the Sun will test our model, team member Michelle Bannister of the University of Canterbury in New Zealand said. Some of the biggest telescopes in the world are already observing this new interstellar object. One of them may be able to find out. One of the telescopes that will be trying to get a look at 3I Atlas will be the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. In fact, this interstellar visitor was first spotted as scientists were preparing to make observations with Rubin, which they predict will uncover between 5 and 50 interstellar objects passing through the solar system as it conducts the 10-year-long Legacy Survey of Space and Time, LSST. The discovery of 3I Atlas suggests that prospects for Rubin may now be more optimistic. We may find about 50 objects, of which some would be similar in size to 3I Atlas. This week's news, especially just after the Rubin first look images, makes the upcoming start of observations all the more exciting. The model the team used to investigate the origins of 3I Atlas was developed by Hopkins as part of his doctoral thesis, one he defended just 1 week before the interstellar object was discovered. Rather than heading on vacation, Hopkins found himself applying the model dubbed the Otahi-Oxford model in real time for the first time to test object 3I Atlas. Rather than the quiet Wednesday I had planned, I woke up to messages like, 3I, it's a fantastic opportunity to test our model on something brand new and possibly ancient, Hopkins concluded. Hopkins discussed the 3I Atlas findings on Friday, June 11th at the Royal Astronomical, should be probably Friday, July 11th, at the Royal Astronomical Society National Astronomy meeting. NAM 2025 at Durham University in the UK. And next, why scientists are so excited about the newfound interstellar comet 3I Atlas. And this is an op-ed by Aster G. Taylor and Daryl Seligman, and this was published 2 days ago on space.com. Recently, scientists around the world announced the discovery of 3I Atlas, the third known interstellar object to pass through the solar system. This discovery will have significant scientific impacts, advancing our understanding of how solar systems form and evolve throughout the history of the galaxy. 3I Atlas has also come at an especially auspicious time, given the recent advent of the Vera C. Rubin Observatory and ongoing difficult discussions on funding for the space sciences. The scientific and cultural impact of 3I Atlas over the coming months and years will serve as an exemplar of what astronomy can learn and why it matters. Until recently, humanity had only discovered 2 interstellar objects. 1I Oumuamua and 2I Borisov. Infamously, Oumuamua exhibited a mysterious, non-gravitational acceleration without a dust coma, which is still not well understood. Unfortunately, Oumuamua was only detected after it had passed close to the Sun, and it quickly became undetectable. As a result, there is little data on this object. Meanwhile, 2I Borisov was a very traditional comet, albeit an extrasolar one. Although we understand more about Borisov, a sample of one understood and one weird object is not enough to provide any meaningful conclusions. The detection of 3I Atlas is a great improvement in this context. The detection of a third object is a 50% increase in the sample size, and given the strangeness of Oumuamua, it effectively doubles the sample of understandable objects. Even though 3I Atlas was only discovered recently, observations are already beginning to clarify the population of interstellar objects. Since 3I Atlas appears to be a comet like 2I Borisov, we can determine that comet-like interstellar objects are far more common than exotic ones like Oumuamua. In addition, 3I has an excess velocity of nearly 60 kilometers per second, or 134,000 miles per hour, relative to the Sun. Since the influence of the galaxy tends to speed up objects over time, this velocity implies that Atlas is far older than either Oumuamua or Borisov, around 3 to 11 billion years old. This fact alone tells us that interstellar objects were being produced relatively early in the lifetime of the galaxy, presumably along with exoplanetary systems. We can even begin to determine the distribution of these objects and infer the population of the still unseen planets that must have ejected them into interstellar space. And that's not all. Even though 3I Atlas was discovered less than a week ago, it will be observable for months to come. Astronomy's great instruments such as the James Webb Space Telescope and the Hubble Space Telescope are expected to reveal its size, composition, spin, and how it reacts to being heated for the first time. As the months pass and more data come in, we will peel back the mysteries of 3I and gain new insights into the workings of distant planetary systems. It is a happy coincidence that a pointed lesson that 3I Atlas was discovered less than a week after the Vera C. Rubin Observatory came online. Although Rubin did not discover this object, in Rubin's first 10 hours of observation, it found more than 2,000 previously unknown asteroids and is expected to discover many more interstellar objects like 3I. As our catalog of interstellar objects grows, we will gain ever-increasing insight into these products of exoplanetary systems. As Rubin discovers these objects, the lessons learned from our observations of 3I will let us more effectively leverage our scientific capabilities to learn about these visitors. At a critical moment, given the current congressional discussions on science funding, 3I Atlas also reminds us of the broader impact of astronomical research. An example like 3I is particularly important to astronomy. As a science, we are supported almost entirely by government and philanthropic funding. The fact that this science is not funded by commercial enterprise indicates that our field does not provoke a financial return on investment, but instead responds to the public's curiosity about the deep questions of the universe. Where did we come from? Are we alone? What else is out there? The curiosity of the public, as expressed by the will of the U.S. Congress and made manifest in the federal budget, is the reason that astronomy exists. At a time when federal science funding is under threat, we are fortunate for the striking example of 3I Atlas. The public interest in this object and the sense of wonder that it brings can help renew public and political commitment to space science. In 3I Atlas, we see both the promise of astronomy and the importance of continuing its funding. And then next we have the final shorty here, see interstellar comet 3I Atlas as see it zoom through the solar system in new telescopic imagery. This is by Andrew Jones, published July 9th on space.com. The European Southern Observatory, ESO, has captured the clearest images yet of the interstellar visitor 3I Atlas as it moves inward toward the solar system. ESO's Very Large Telescope, VLT, snapped new images of the comet just 2 days after it was discovered, recording a time lapse as the object moved across the sky. The resulting stacked image is the deepest view yet of the interstellar intruder. These data were obtained with the FORS-2 instrument on the VLT on the night of 3 July 2025. ESO officials wrote in a July 8th statement. The VLT time-lapse shows the comet moving over the course of 13 minutes. Comet 3I Atlas was discovered on July 1st by Deep Random Survey Remote Telescope in Chile, part of the NASA-funded ATLAS Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System telescope. When the comet was about 410 million miles or 670 million kilometers away from the Sun. Originally designated C/2025 N1 (Atlas), it was quickly confirmed to be an interstellar visitor due to its hyperbolic and highly eccentric orbit. 3I Atlas is only the third interstellar object detected visiting our solar system, after 1I Oumuamua in 2017 and 2I Borisov in 2019. The 3I in the Newfound object's name stands for third interstellar. ESO says the better quality images of the comet will become available as it makes its way into the inner solar system. The enigmatic object is expected to make its closest approach to Earth in late October 2025, but it won't be visible to telescopes or astronomers at this point, as 3I Atlas will be hiding behind the Sun. It will become observable again in December 2025 as it makes its way back to interstellar space, ESO stated. And that's it for 3I Atlas. I think this is going to become a very popular story in the next few months, so we'll keep an eye on it. Does anyone have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? Please come now with your call sign. All right, thanks very much. This is Virginia, NV5F, your net control for Skynet this evening. And let's see if we have any more check-ins for Skynet. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick in McKinney.
Okay, we've got KJ5, JAK, Nick in McKinney, and I'm going to reset the web check-in thing, see if we've got any new folks there. Okay, looks like we're all caught up on that. So next is What's Up with Chaz, KF5JHA. Let's see what's going on in the sky. Take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. This is Chaz and Bob the cat. You know that Bob gets 9 check-ins because he has 9 lives. Okay, we call this segment of Skynet What Is Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the past couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and maybe beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. Oh, I'm talking about slides. That's on the video version. If you want to go to w5fc.org and click on the links for video, hey, you can look at the YouTube video of what's going on with Skynet right now. Once again, slide 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time, and is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude. It's much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. It was predicted to go nova a year ago. And so, yeah, there's some new predictions. I'll talk about that next time. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image was taken from Wednesday from spaceweather.com. That's not the image, but it was actually taken by Solar Dynamic Observatory. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you could use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. This one sunspot that's just now turning on the edge of the sun coming into our field of view looks like it might be one of those sunspots. Now, the sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens, but we're right around that time. I just talked about the solar cycle about 4 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. On July the 10th, the moon was full, so the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. July the 17th is the 3rd quarter moon. On July the 20th, the moon is at perigee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 368,041 kilometers. New moon is on July the 24th. The 1st quarter phase of the moon is on August the 1st. And also on August the 1st, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,161 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 6. Now, on July the 14th, the planet Venus and the bright star Aldebaran are in conjunction in the eastern morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 7. On July the 16th, you can observe the conjunction of the moon, Saturn, and the planet Neptune in the morning sky. You'll need a telescope to see Neptune. It's much too faint to be seen with your 2 eyes, and even a pair of binoculars isn't good enough. So, Neptune, need a telescope. Slide Master, slide number 8. On July the 20th, the occultation of the Pleiades star cluster by the moon can be viewed in the east-northeastern sky. On July the 21st, this is slide number 9, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and Venus, and that can be done in the east-northeastern sky as well. Slide Master, slide number 10. On July the 22nd, the conjunction of the moon and Jupiter and Venus is visible in the east northeastern sky. A lot of that stuff is happening, isn't it? At the end of July. Wow. On July the 23rd, this is like the third one in a row I'm talking about. There's a conjunction of the moon and Jupiter in the eastern sky. These are all happening in the morning sky, by the way. On Slide Master, slide number 12, July the 28th, the conjunction of the moon and Mars in the western evening sky won't be easy to observe. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13.
Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question, or maybe you need a fill on some of the information I've given you, or maybe you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill.
Like my volume went down on the... Oh, it's back again. Okay. All right. Hearing nothing. Slide number 14. So as the moon wanes, those are these words for the segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Maybe the clouds will go away so we can look at some of that cool stuff. Appreciate it very much. And next we have space exploration and space history, and this is with Gus, W5GUS. All right, take it away, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. W5GUS here. Space exploration news this week's got some interesting things. First one is about space ice. Space ice found in comets isn't much like water on Earth after all. Space is cold, and research has shown time and time again that space ice is prevalent throughout the universe, but despite sharing a similar name to the ice we find in glaciers or even in our freezers here on Earth, new research says that frozen water found on icy planets, comets, and even in the dust that sails through space is very different from the ice you might put in your soda. For starters, despite looking like ice, a shapeless void, or a shapeless solid, ice is actually made up of multiple nanoscopic crystals, all of which are only a few billionths of a meter across, if that. So what makes Earth ice and space ice so different? Well, according to researchers, Earth ice is made up of entirely of orderly lattice crystal design. These all showcase the six-fold symmetry of snowflakes in the underlying structure. But we've long believed that space ice has different structure instead. Because of the near vacuum conditions of space, the water frozen there likely lacked the energy needed to form these orderly lattices. Scientists believe they were most likely made up of random arrangements of crystals, but new research is challenging this perspective. So instead of being made up entirely of random crystallized structures, the researchers found that in order for the ice they made in their test to truly resemble that of space ice, they had to give it some structure, roughly 20% of the overall structure. But what is even more intriguing is that when warmed slightly, they found that the crystals retain the structure in their original design. This suggests that the ice holds onto some of its memory of the past, which could help greatly in the future studies of frozen water in space. It could also fundamentally change our understanding of how life came to Earth, something that researchers have long theorized happened as amino acids hitched rides in the frozen water of comets. But if space ice retains some of the structure of its original design, then the empty places for those acids to grow and live would be even more scarce than was previously thought to be. Of course, the study is far from definitive, and further research will need to be done to confirm these findings. Okay, next item is X-59 model. Is tested in the Japanese supersonic wind tunnel. Researchers from NASA and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, recently tested a scale model of the X-59 experimental aircraft in a supersonic wind tunnel located in Japan. They wanted to assess the noise audible underneath the aircraft. The test was an important milestone for NASA's one-of-a-kind X-59, which is designed to fly faster than the speed of sound without causing a loud supersonic boom. When the X-59 flies, sound underneath it, a result of pressure signature below the wings, I guess, below the craft, will be a critical factor for what people hear on the ground. The X-59 is about 100 feet long, a wingspan of about 30 feet, and the Japanese wind tunnel, on the other hand, is just over 3 feet long by 3 feet wide. So researchers used a model scale to just a small percent of the actual aircraft, about 19 inches nose to tail. They exposed it to conditions mimicking the X-plane's planned supersonic cruising speed of Mach 1.4, or approximately 925 miles per hour. The series of tests performed at the wind tunnel allowed researchers to gather critical information and data to compare to their predictions derived through modeling. All right, let's move on to space-related birthdays. Okay, July 6, 1924, Robert Mitchell White flew the X-15 to an altitude of over 59 miles, qualifying him for U.S. Air Force astronaut wings. And July 7th, 1960 is Kevin Ford birthday, STS-128. And July 9th, 1943, John Casper, STS-36, STS-54, STS-62, and STS-77. July 11th, 1950, Lawrence DeLucas was born, STS-50. On July 12th, 1957, Rick Husband was born, STS-96, STS-107. And on July 13th, in 1950, George Nelson was born, STS-41, STS-61, STS-26. Okay, we'll move from birthdays to space history. This week in space history, July 6th, 1938 was the discovery of Lysithea. It is a irregular satellite of Jupiter. It was discovered by Seth Barnes Nicholson in 1938 at Mount Wilson Observatory, and is named after the mythological Lysithea, daughter of Oceanus and one of Zeus's lovers. It did not receive its present name until 1975. Before then, it was simply known as Jupiter X, or that might be Jupiter 10, but I think it's X, and was sometimes called Demeter. Okay, and on July 16, 1969, in space history, Apollo 11, final preparations for moon landing. That was 55 years ago. NASA was making final preparations for the July 16th launch of Apollo 11, the first moon landing. But how did they decide who would be the first man to walk on the moon? One of the first versions of the egress checklist had the lunar module pilot exit the spacecraft before the commander, which matched what had been done on Gemini missions, where the commander had never performed the spacewalk. Reporters wrote in early 1969 that Aldrin would be the first man to walk on the moon, and Associate Administrator George Mueller told reporters Aldrin would be the first as well. Aldrin heard that Armstrong would be the first because Armstrong was a civilian, which made Aldrin livid. And Aldrin attempted to persuade other lunar module pilots he should be first, but they responded cynically about what they perceived as lobbying campaign from him. Attempting to stem interdepartmental conflict, Slayton told Aldrin that Armstrong would be the first since he was the commander. The decision was announced at a press conference on April 14th, 69. And for decades, Aldrin believed the final decision was largely driven by the lunar module's hatch location. Because the astronauts had their spacesuits on and the spacecraft was so small, maneuvering to exit the spacecraft was difficult. The crew tried a simulation in which Aldrin left the spacecraft first, but he damaged the simulator while attempting to egress. While this was enough for mission planners to make their decision, Aldrin and Armstrong were left in the dark on the decision until late spring. Slayton told Armstrong the plan was to have him leave the spacecraft first if he agreed, and Armstrong said, yes, that's the way to do it. The media accused Armstrong of exercising his commander's prerogative to exit the spacecraft first, and Chris Kraft revealed in his 2001 autobiography that a meeting occurred between Gilruth, Slayton, Lowe, and himself to make sure Aldrin would not be the first to walk on the moon. They argued that the first person to walk on the moon should be like Charles Lindbergh, a calm and quiet person. They made the decision to change the flight plan so the commander was the first to egress from the spacecraft. Okay, glad they cleared that up. Okay, July 7, 1914, continuing with space history, Robert Goddard was granted his very first patent for a, quote, rocket apparatus. This is July 7, 1914. The patent describes his concept for the multi-stage rocket In the patent application, Goddard did not mention human spaceflight. The patent reads, "This invention relates to a rocket apparatus and particularly to a form of such apparatus adapted to transport photographic or other recording instruments to extreme heights." However, it continues, the concept of multi-stage rockets was crucial to launch vehicle development and has been the way that humans have reached space since 1961. During his lifetime, Goddard had 48 patents issued to him. He was awarded 35 others for which he had applied posthumously. His wife, Esther, applied for 131 additional patents in his name based on notes, sketches, and photographs, bringing the total number of Goddard patents up to 214. Some of the patents include a gimbalized nozzle, or the gimbalized nozzle, a gyroscopic control, the liquid fuel rocket engine, parachute recovery, and the cryogenic bearing. And all of these inventions were used by space agencies in some capacity. And although Dr. Goddard did not live to see human spaceflight, he died in 1945, his inventions and experiments paved the way for space exploration. Okay, back to space history. July 7th, 2003, the Mars Explorer rover B, named Opportunity, launched on a Delta II rocket from Cape Canaveral, the second of NASA's Mars exploration rovers. It was an exact copy of the Mars exploration rover Alpha, which they named Spirit, which was launched on June 10th, 2003, which was about a month earlier, and carried the same set of instruments. Opportunity landed on Mars on January 25th, 2004, and studied rocks and soil on Mars to determine how past water activity influenced the red planet's environment over time. All right, and July 8th, 2011, Space Shuttle Atlantis left Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center for her last flight into space. This was the final mission of the shuttle program. The STS-135 crew, Chris Ferguson, Doug Hurley, Rex Walheim, and Sandy Magnus, were on a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. And STS-135 was the 33rd flight of Atlantis, the 37th shuttle mission to the ISS, and the 135th mission of NASA's Space Shuttle program. NASA commentator Rob Nebius said, quote, "The Space Shuttle spreads its wing one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history." Okay, back to space history, July 10th, 1962. Name you haven't heard in a while, Telstar set the ball rolling as the first active communications satellite. Televised events from overseas? What? Before Telstar 1, such a thing was unheard of. It was produced for AT&T, and Telstar left Earth atmosphere atop a Thor Delta 316 rocket to become the first commercial payload into space. Telstar demonstrated that it was feasible to transmit information using satellites, including the relaying of the world's first transatlantic television signal from Maine to France. And Telstar showed images and clips of American and French interests, including President Kennedy, sports, and other areas of entertainment. It operated for 4 months, during which it facilitated over 400 telephone, telegraph, facsimile, and television transmission before becoming inactive due to radiation. And later, communication satellites would be placed in geosynchronous orbit, allowing them to relay transmissions continuously. All right, and July 11, 1979, America's first space station, Skylab, returned to Earth. Skylab launched on May 14th, 1973 from Kennedy Space Center, and it marked a new phase for America's human space flight program. The goal now became to stay in space for longer periods and conduct complex scientific experiments in the unique space environment. Dr. Wernher von Braun and his team from NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville converted the third stage of a Saturn V rocket into a habitable orbital laboratory. It was put into space on the last Saturn V to launch. Efforts in the early summer of 1979 to safely deorbit Skylab were mostly successful. The planned re-entry over Indian Ocean happened as expected, but some of the remnants of Skylab went further east than expected and came down over parts of Australia. And on July 12th, last item here on this space history, the first completely Russian, July 12th, 2000, the Zvezda service module launched on a Russian Proton rocket, the first completely Russian contribution to the International Space Station. Zvezda served as the cornerstone for the first ISS inhabitants and provided living quarters as well as life support, communications, flight control, and propulsion system. The ISS has since been added onto and completed, basically, but Zvezda still functions as the heart of the Russian segment of the current space station. And with that, that is all of the space history for this evening. So back to net control, W5GUS.
Alrighty, thank you, Gus. That is a lot of history. July is a busy month. Alright, next we have, and this is Virginia NV5S Net Control for Skynet this evening, and now we have Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week with Chaz, KF5JHA. So go ahead, Chaz.
Virginia, this could be interesting. Bob the cat's sitting right beside the computer, so if things go bananas, we'll blame him. Slide Master, slide number 15. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T, Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Now, since there's about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. So Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is a constellation that's related to one that we talked about 2 weeks ago. We talked about Serpent, the snake. This is Ophiuchus, the snake wrangler. Okay, maybe some people call it the snake handler, but I call it the snake wrangler. We are in Texas, right? Ophiuchus is the serpent bear, and is more familiar in terms, like I said, is the snake wrangler. There is no classical mythology hero with the name of Ophiuchus, but the constellation is believed to be a representation of the ancient Greek physician. The universal symbol of medicine belongs to him. The universal symbol of medicine. Of course, it is a familiar symbol with a staff and two intertwining serpents. The serpents are represented by the constellation of serpents. Talked about him 2 weeks ago, the snake. Ophiuchus is sometimes called the 13th constellation of the zodiac. Now, why? Because it lies along the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the path that the sun follows through in the sky over a period of 1 year. In fact, the portion of the ecliptic that lies in Ophiuchus is longer than the part that is in its neighboring constellation of Scorpio. Wow. So there's 13 constellations of the zodiac. Slide Master, slide number 16. One of the most important parts of Skynet, the jokes of the week. Oh no, the jokes of the week are related to the constellation of the week, so okay. If you're over on Echolink, you can sit there and boo and hiss text-wise. If you're on the radio, you'll just have to boo and hiss in your own mind, because I can't hear whatever you say. Yeah. Okay, here we go. What's the best unit of measurement for snakes? Well, inches, of course, because they don't have any feet. What do you call a magic snake? An adder-cadabra. Adders or snakes, you know. Okay, if I have to explain them, they're no good. What do you call a snake who works for the government? A civil serpent. Maybe I should have saved that one to not read out loud tonight. What do you give a sick snake? Can you say sick snake 3 times in a row? Oh, a sick snake you give aspirin to. You know, asps are snakes. What do you call a snake's favorite author? William Snakespeare. What's a snake's favorite TV show? Oh, come on, this is an easy one. You can do this. Monty Python, of course. And a bonus one. Why was the snake handler mad at the jewelry thief? Because he wanted his diamond back. No, you get this here in Texas. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 17. Barnard's star is a red dwarf star that is about 6 light years away, making it the second closest star to our solar system, well, star system. Only the Alpha Centaurus trinary system is closer. Barnard's star is famous for having the largest known proper motion of all the stars. That means across our field of view, it travels the fastest as seen from the Earth. Across our radial direction, not the radial, never mind. It is the faint 9th magnitude, which requires a finer chart and a good telescope to locate it. You can see it using an 8-inch telescope and a finer chart in Burnham's Celestial Handbook. Barnard's star was discovered by Edward Emerson Barnard in 1916. Slide Master, slide number 18. M9, it's a Messier object, is a globular star cluster that is easily seen in binoculars and telescopes. Using an 8-inch telescope, you can start to resolve the individual stars in the cluster. The cluster looks dim compared to the other globular clusters in Ophiuchus, and I'm going to talk about several more of them. Yep, this is like globular cluster land. Slide Master, slide number 19. M10 is a brighter and much more easily seen globular cluster than M9. At 41 power, you can start to resolve individual stars. At 85 power, shows more stars, and 126 stars shows even more stars. Slide Master, slide number 12. Sorry, that was slide number 20. The object is M12. M12 is a very similar globular cluster to M10 in that it starts to resolve at low power and improves at much higher powers. It's less dense than the other globular star clusters that we've talked about. Therefore, the core resolves better. Slide Master, slide number 21. M14 is similar to M9 in brightness. It was mostly unresolvable in an 8-inch telescope. At 126 power, a few individual stars pop in and out of view, but overall, it appears like a fuzzy blob in the sky. Still, it's easy to notice in a 50-millimeter finder and also in binoculars. Slide Master, slide number 22. Ophiuchus, Nebula and Complex. Ophiuchus is itself a trinary star system, and the two brightest components are fairly easy to split. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. The two brightest stars in the system are noticeably at 84 power and can be cleanly split at 125 power. The nebula complex is best seen with a fast focal ratio telescope, in other words, like f4 or f5. At 41 power, only a slight brightening of the sky background is visible in Rho. In some of the nearby stars that resolve into surrounding nebula complex. The emission nebula surrounding Aries, yep, Aries is part of this, and Scorpius, was noticeable in nearby globular star cluster M4, also in Scorpius, adds some spice to the interesting region. It is a great target for astrophotographers. It is known by Jason Ware's image of the region. That's what you're seeing on the video version of Skynet. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 23. Now, there's a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Ophiuchus, the Snake Wrangler. I've just given you a sampling of some of the objects the Astronomical League has, and at last count, 74 different observing programs, and all of them have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 of these objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide master, slide number 24, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Ophiuchus, the Snake Wrangler. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next week we'll take a look at a different constellation in the northern part of the sky called Draco the Dragon. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night. 73, back to our net control.
Okay, thank you very much, Chaz. Appreciate it. This is Virginia in V5S, net control for Skynet. And we are really short on time, so Tom, if you want to just, at your discretion, give us some space launches and satellite passages, that would be super.
I'll be happy to do that. This is KE5ICX. Space launches for this week, we have in just about, an hour or so from now? Let's see, 12:30, 11:30, yeah, so about an hour from now, be a launch of a Falcon 9 with the commercial GTO-1 on board. This will be from SLC-40 at Space Force Station in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a mysterious payload, that's all it says, known only as commercial GTO-1. Oh, maybe it's that classic 60s car. Well, at any rate, July 13th, 14th, overnight, will be a Falcon 9 Starlink 15-2 launch from Vandenberg. This will launch another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. A little more than 8 minutes after liftoff, first stage booster will target a landing on a drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. Let's see, I'm going to give you this next one. July 16th, Aries, test flight 1. This will launch from Pad 1 of Bowen Orbital Spaceport at Gilmore Space in Australia, preparing a launch for the inaugural flight of its Aries Block 1 rocket. This 3-stage vehicle is 82 feet tall and is equipped with a 4.9 payload fairing. The rocket is designed to send up to 305 kilograms into low Earth orbit. This first mission, called Test Flight 1, does not appear to have a payload on board. Okay, let me move over to satellite passes. This would be the International Space Station. There are several. Hold on. Boy, I messed this up. I didn't put down the base info. Hang on. Well, that's not matching. Well, I guess it is. Okay, so hold on.
I'm complete
completely operational and all my circuits are functioning
Well,
perfectly.
Afterglow, I messed up on this somehow. I'm not sure exactly how. I've got different numbers popping up on here, but there is a good pass on July 13th, minus 0.5 magnitude of 2106, and it reached its highest point at 2108, and then it will fall at 2110 to the north. July 20th has a minus 0.7 magnitude at 2331. The north-northwest, it reached its highest point at 14 degrees at 2332, and it'll fall to the north at 14 degrees. And then July 21st, minus 1.0 magnitude at 2243. Out of the north, it'll reach its highest point at 12 degrees at 2244, and it'll fall to the north-northeast at 2245. That's it. I'm out of time anyway. Boy, I'm not quite sure what happened with those Keplers tonight, but they're all different for some reason. But this is the latest information. Maybe heavens above messed up. I don't know. Back to you, Virginia. See, I got it right this time. KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That will be it for us this evening. We're already over time, so are there any final check-ins for Skynet? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Didn't know if you got me in there. K5 GDW, John and Capel.
Okay, I've got K5GDW, John and Capel. Thank you for jumping in there at the last minute. And let's see if I can do some math here real quick. We have, that would be 12 plus 8, 20 hams participated this evening in Skynet. Let's see, and thank you all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next weekend, every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all of the DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of the net. Until next Saturday night, this is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing the net at, let's see, what is it, about 10:32 local time. And let's see, and returning the repeater to normal or abnormal amateur use 73, everybody, and enjoy this evening discovering the universe. And in about 5 minutes, we will be starting the Afterglow movie net discussing The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. So if you want to stay up late and talk about movies, this is the place to be. Good night, everyone, in D5F.
And thank you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX. You got 5 minutes, actually, and some change. So go make some popcorn, come back, and we'll be discussing Don Quixote, the man who killed Don Quixote, in about 5 minutes. KE5ICX. All right, well, it's time to begin tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight's movie is considered an adventure comedy, but it has fantasy or fantastic elements to it, and it is done by a person well known for his fantasy and fantastic storytelling, Terry Gilliam. Now, I'm not going to read you the plot, but although it is contained inside of this description of the movie itself, I think you're going to find this fascinating because making this movie was nearly, it shouldn't have happened, but it eventually did. It just took a very, very, very long time. And here's why. The Man Who Killed Don Quixote is a 2018 adventure comedy film directed by Terry Gilliam and written by Gilliam and Tony Quixote, loosely based on the 1605-1615 novel Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Gilliam tried to make a film many times over 29 years, which made it an infamous example of development hell. Gilliam started work on the film in 1989, but was unable to secure funding until 1998, when he entered full pre-production with a budget of $32.1 million without American financing, with Sean Richford as Quixote and Johnny Depp as Toby Grummet, a 21st century marketing executive thrown back through time, and Vanessa Paredes as the female lead. Shooting began in 2000 in Navarre, but difficulties such as sets and equipment being destroyed by flooding, the departure of Rochefort due to illness, problems obtaining insurance for the production, and other financial difficulties led to a sudden suspension of the production and its subsequent cancellation. The original production was a subject of a documentary film, Lost in La Mancha. I watched that this morning. That was quite interesting and illuminating, which was intended to be a making of, but was released on its own in 2002. Gilliam's repeated attempts to relaunch production between 2003 and 2016 included Depp, Ian McGregor, and Jack O'Connell as Toby, and Robert Duvall, Michael Palin, and John Hurt as Quixote. Yes, you know what I mean. All were canceled for various reasons, such as failing to secure funds, Depp's busy schedule, and eventual loss of interest in the project, and Hurt being diagnosed with cancer that eventually led to his death. After yet another failed attempt, it was unexpectedly reported in March of 2017 that filming had finally started with Adam Driver, who was confirmed as Toby in 2016 and helped secure funding, and Jonathan Pryce, who had been part of the original 2000 production in a different role as Quixote. On the 4th of June 2017, Gilliam announced that the shooting of the film was complete, 17 years after it was originally started. The final version of the film is set in modern-day rural Spain and now features Toby as a director shooting commercials and Quixote as an insane shoemaker convinced that he is the character from Cervantes' novel. The Man Who Killed Don Quixote premiered on May 19, 2018, simultaneously acting as a closing film at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival and being released in French theaters. Gilliam faced difficulty in the process of releasing the film worldwide, partly due to the lengthy legal dispute with former producer Paolo Branco. Subsequently, the film was only released in a few other countries in 2018. It was released in the United States and Canada on April 10, 2019, and in the United Kingdom and Ireland on January 31st, 2020. It received mostly positive reviews from critics who praised its creativity and Driver and Price's performance, but found it messy and was a commercial failure, earning only $2.5 million against a budget of 16 million, I believe, euros here. I'm not sure. They switched between the two. Plus its original 2032 million budget. I think it's euros 1 to $1, although that may have changed dramatically over the last few weeks. A follow-up in Lost in La Mancha, titled He Dreams of Giants, and following the making of the final version of The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, was released in 2019. So there you have it. I could read the description here, but I think you'll find that this is a story of a madman, so reading it will probably be somewhat incomprehensible. So, what we'll do is this, and what we always do. Hopefully you saw the film. If you didn't, you're more than welcome to discuss anything you know about Don Quixote or any of the productions or Man of La Mancha, whatever you want. Or we can describe some of the other things, like the failed Orson Welles version of this film. Is the story of Don Quixote has been considered a curse on any director who has ever tried to do it. So keep that in mind in case you ever decide to take a directorship on something of this classic novel. So we will first take check-ins, and you'll give me your call sign, your name. Did you see the film? That's fine. If you didn't, you can still check in. Secondly, we'll go through we'll go through plot. What did you think about it? Then another round with characterization, and finally, if we have a time for the third round, any of the technical aspects, which there are plenty in this film. It is Terry Gilliam film, after all. We'll try and get all that in the period of about 90 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5BLT. Bill in Garland. I did not see this film. I was busy battling windmills.
Is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in East Dallas. Aaron and I are about to start the movie for a late date night, so we'll be listening. I'll recheck if I have something to say, but there's no need to call on me.
WB50ZL, Brenda. Yes, I saw this movie.
Well, 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell. I'll be listening in the background, everybody, and no need to call me. And in case you all feel inspired, Terry Gilliam, by the way, does answer emails. If you ever want to talk to him and tell him anything, I first have knowledge on this. Anyway, K5JW.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I watched most of this movie, but I became a little bit lost and disillusioned. So I stopped, and don't call on me. I'm going to turn the radio off because I got some other things to do and need to go to bed early tonight. So I'm here, but I'm leaving in 5BB.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, this is Virginia. I got about halfway through this, and I just didn't see the other half, and I can maybe comment a little bit after I've heard all of you guys talk, but yeah, I have a few things I'll probably want to say based on other stuff, but I was a little lost and not paying very much attention, so NV5.
All right, let me go ahead and get folks checked in. I'm going to go check Echolink here. There's still some folks there. Let me go ahead and ask, anyone in Echolink like to check in, and then I'll go ahead and acknowledge everybody. I thought maybe we had some hangers on from previous nets, and we do, but they've probably fallen into a confused slumber or a long sleep. It is late after all. Okay, we have checked in W5BLT, Bill over in Garland. Yes, he saw the film. MQ5TM, Tony is about to start to watch the film. Tony, I hope you enjoyed the film. I rather did. Next, WB50ZL, Brenda, yes, she saw the film. John, K5JDW, he says something, no, he's not going to, he did not see the film, but he knows something about it, which is interesting. So we won't call on him. He said, don't call on me. That's okay. I got N5BB Bill. He was confused by the film. He did see it, but he's going to go turn the radio off, put a pillow over his head, and that's the end of that. Next is ND5F. That's Virginia. Yes, she saw the film or parts of it. So anyone else want to check in before we get started? Please come with your call, your name. Did you see the film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from 2018? All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. This may be a quick one tonight. We have fewer people. It may be because the subject matter was a little challenging. I will say that. There's no doubt that this was a bit more than what we're used to, although if anybody has seen Primer, or has watched Jetstream, Primer being the most complicated time travel movie ever made, and Jetstream being the worst science fiction film of all time, making Plan 9 from outer space look like Academy Award material, then this should have been a breeze. But we'll see. We'll start at the top with Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from 2018?
Hi, Tom. I'm sorry I misled you. I did not see the film. I was busy battling windmills, so I didn't have time. However, I liked the sound of the plot. I loved Don Quixote, the story when I was in school reading it, and there was an NPR radio dramatization of the book. But I didn't get to see this movie, so I'm here to listen to see if it's something that I want to partake in. But like I said, I'm sorry I misled you. Did not get to see the movie. W5BLT.
All right, no problem, Bill. Well, then maybe we'll be going through this pretty quickly. Okay, I'm going to go to Brenda. I'm going to tell you, I'm having some trouble with the All-Star Link connection tonight, so I'm alternating back and forth. I'm transmitting on All-Star Link, which works better than Echolink, but I'm getting a better receive signal on Echolink, so I'm popping back and forth between two devices to make that happen. So if I sound disoriented, that's the reason why, more so than normal. So if I don't respond, you might want to say something to me a second time, because I may not have caught it the first time. So next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot for our movie tonight?
I thought the plot was really interesting. It's a little hard to follow at first because I didn't really know what was going on, but as it developed, it became more clear. It was an interesting story, you know, a movie about a movie, and which has been done before, but you have to be careful. And the characters were, I mean, I hate to talk about characters now, but they really drove this movie because the acting was good and the characters were well played, and I think that helped the plot along. You know, it's got to be the kiss of death when a movie just can't seem to grow up and get made. It just gets muddled and loses its focus. But considering that, I think they did a pretty good job of it. Actually, I don't think I ever read Don Quixote, so I'm not, the whole concept is not something I'm real familiar with. Maybe I should wiki it and see what it's all about. I did think that party scene, that was just sort of gratuitous weirdness. I don't think that added much to the plot, but boy, lots of movies do that. All right, I'm going to turn it back. WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And next up is Virginia. That's NV5F. Virginia, you got halfway through it. You said, "What happened?" And what did you garner out of the first half of the film from KE5ICX?
Okay, well, let's see. I think I read Don Quixote when I was in junior high, and I had a really good teacher who we had to write a book report every month, and we had a list of books we chose from, and I'm not sure why I chose it. I think I was told it was about an eccentric Spanish knight who, had a wild imagination, and I remember thinking it was amusing, but I was like 12 or 13, and I know literature is good for kids that young, but it's mostly wasted on them because they don't have a clue. They just want to make it to Saturday morning so they can watch cartoons. So the main thing that anyone ever quotes from that book or talks about is, this crazy guy battling windmills because he thinks they're giants, and of course that was in this, and that's the main thing I remember from the book. And I, like Brenda, I probably should go back and read it again, and this might mean more to me. I'll start by saying I'm not a Terry Gilliam fan. I think that he muddles everything he does. Everything is kind of disjointed and just difficult because it's almost like the fantasy elements in it are kind of gratuitous and even obnoxious. And this I found less so, but it was hard to follow. And I also find that a movie about making a movie is just, not really my favorite subject. It screams, student film. In fact, my first screenplay that I ever wrote was about someone who moved to LA because she wanted to make movies. So anyway, maybe that's because it's the only thing I knew about. Anyhow, I find that just the weird time jumping and what's going on, and suddenly you're here, and suddenly you're there, and suddenly something weird is happening, and it's symbolic, and I wasn't really focused on the movie, and I could have focused harder and kept track of more of what was going on, and I just didn't. I guess my mind was on other things, and so I only got about halfway through it, and I just found myself thinking that I was only halfway through it, and I had another hour to go, and I just didn't think I could make it, so I quit watching. I really did like the book when I read it a long time ago, and I like the character of Don Quixote. The plot overall with the movie making stuff and all that, I would have to just turn off my anti-Gilliam biases to sit through this, and maybe I will. I'm not saying that I stopped watching it because it was terrible, but it was just kind of convoluted and disjointed, and I wasn't really following it very well. But there were some aspects of it I kind of thought were interesting and maybe worth finishing watching it at some point in V5F.
This is where the director says, enter Tom, K5 DDW.
Tom, if you're trying to transmit, you might want to switch to Echolink. All-Star might be doing that thing where you think you're talking and you think it's transmitting and it's just not. It does that sometimes in V5F.
I'm going to try again here. Can you hear me now? I had to reconnect, I think.
Yes, I hear you in V5F.
Back over on Echolink, and it was not returning a signal, so I thought maybe I wasn't transmitting on All-Star Link. That's what happens when you got two things running at the same time. If one doesn't work, you assume the other isn't either. Okay, well, at any rate, here's the thing. No, I did not see or read Man of La Mancha or Don Quixote when I was in junior high or high school, so I didn't have that. I didn't know the story until I'd read a synopsis of it. But it does make sense in the sense that, the story inside of the story, which is essentially what's happening here, really does work. And it is sort of an allegory for what happened to Terry Gilliam anyway throughout his career, trying to be creative and bring things to film, because a lot of people don't like him or don't understand him or don't appreciate his directorial and commentary style. And that's perfectly fine. There are a lot of directors like that. This group reveres Stanley Kubrick, but in the populist world, in the more popular world, people don't like him, and his movies are long and cryptic, and have a glacial pace to them, but that's also to help establish a certain mood. And I think that's what happens with Terry Gilliam here, too. I happen to like him mostly. I don't love him as far as all of the work that he does. I agree with you, Virginia. He doesn't always make the finest film ever, or even something that you want to watch again. I think he does more often than not. I think he does have hits. I think 12 Monkeys is very well done. Time Bandits is a favorite. It's a lighter fare, but still quite fun. And what he does, and he does in this film, and get to the plot, is that he loads up. One of his assistant director in the documentary says that Terry Gilliam loads up scenes, and that's what you're talking about, with things being very in your face on screen. He doesn't do a simple shot. Everything has multiple layers. It has many things happening within each scene, and it just drives people in pre-production crazy trying to make all this stuff work. But that's the kind of film and the style that he uses and he's most comfortable with, even though it causes great stress both for him and his cast. But Stanley Kubrick could go and do many, 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 many takes for something very simple and to get what he wanted. And so you have directors like that. And this is where they also seem to excel, because they have plenty to choose from, and they find what they consider as optimal, and they get credit for that. Although a lot of times they don't get movies to do, because they make films that budgets balloon and people don't want to see their films. And it's a commercial enterprise. You don't make money off of... The movie-making business is not non-profit unless it's by accident. So that's the things you got to keep in mind. that it is the story of Don Quixote, and it involves a person who's gone nuts, essentially. And you want to be able to, you want to root for the character, because if he finds that his fantasy world is fantasy, it's going to kill him, and it's going to destroy him. And with that, you don't want that to happen, because you find the character is chivalrous, right? And we love him because he does care, and he does, he is opinionated, but he also knows that he's trying to make things better, both for himself and for others. And this is what happens in the movie. Well, in the end, our main character, who is Toby, takes on the persona of Don Quixote and keeps it alive, because the character lives on forever. He will live on forever. And I thought that was interesting. It is a comedy. You've got to listen to the dialogue and hear what's going on to find that it's quite funny. I think it's a major challenge. I did not turn on subtitles, and I should have, for this film, because I needed it. But I'm going to watch it again. This time, now knowing what to expect, I'll spend more time with how the film is playing out with the characters, because they all evolve and they grow. And I just found that really fascinating and visually interesting. The ending is somewhat crazy, as you might imagine. Gilliam takes it to the nth degree with the characters, but it moves very quickly. You've got to pay very close attention to what people are saying, how they're acting, how they're reacting, and you're going to have to forge sort of a mental picture of how that's going to work out, because, yes, even the critics said that it's kind of all over the place. If you saw any movie, say, that is filmed in a non-conventional way, like out of sequence, and that's how the movie is presented, you have to pay extra attention. It's one of those type of films, and you have to be ready for him. It's like going to church, and you're going to go see the Latin Mass or something. You're expecting something that is going to be difficult to follow, perhaps, but if you put yourself in the right mindset, you should be able to enjoy the film. And another example of this is, and a favorite of mine, of course, is Blade Runner, science fiction. When I first watched it, I hated that film. And I thought about that film for 2 or 3 days. I actually went back while the film was still playing and watched it a second time in the theater and discovered that I liked it. And then by the third time I watched it, I loved it. And I kind of have a feeling this film may fall in, I don't know if it would be as a favorite as much as Blade Runner is, but I think it may fall into one of my favorite movies, simply because it's so different and it's so interesting and so visually splendorous that I got to watch it again. And the characters I'm sympathetic to the characters. I love them all for different reasons. And it just kind of works, and I don't know really why. I've got to see it again and pay attention to it and get the more details out of it, so that once I saw it the first time and I got my bearings, the second time was much more meaningful. So I can't give you a lot of specifics here, because I got to go back and look for the specifics, because I wasn't quite sure what I was watching at first, and now I think that it's beginning to culminate in my head as to what's going on. No. Did I say I want to see more? Yes. Would I watch it again? Absolutely. I think that's what makes it interesting. And what good filmmaking is about, and when I say good, I put it in quotes, because even bad films can be good. But when I mean good filmmaking is to get outside of the standard conventions, because film will allow you to do that. You can go anywhere with film. Of course, you got to have a budget, but you can go anywhere. You can go into fantasy. You can go into hardcore. You can have a experiential thing that really works, or you can just tell a story straight up, or you can do a documentary. You can do whatever you want, and you're not limited to a stage or just your visuals can be as far and as wide as you want them to be, and I think that he pushes the boundaries on that, and I like directors who do that. I don't have to like every film that they make. Certainly, as me, I've mentioned a few times people who have directed films and written things, and I love some works they do, and I hate others. That's just the thing. Do I think they are bad directors because of it? No. And one example too that I give as well is like Woody Allen. I love Woody Allen, and I can't stand Woody Allen. It just depends on the films that he makes. Some of them are great, and some of them not so much. And even in one of the movies, the alien comes down in the spaceship, and he says, no, we like your movies, especially the early funny ones. If you want to be successful, tell funnier jokes. That's what it says. The alien tells him. And the alien's right. So even directors are aware of and creative people are aware of their own frailties and shortcomings. So, and Terry Gilliam in the documentary pretty much says that as well. He knows that he can be trouble. But that's the kind of films that he likes to make, and those are the kind of films that generally people like. This was not one of them. It was not financially successful. Okay, and with that long dissertation, I will go. There's only three of us really talking about the film, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. The next one is pretty juicy. It has to do with characterization. So I'll go to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about characterization from KE5ICX?
This is WB5OZL. Well, I have no argument with the casting. I thought they did well. Adam Driver's just such a brilliant actor. He was really good. I just loved all these little quirks. Just something just a little bit offbeat about some of the characters that I thought made it a little funnier. And, the actors generally just did a really fine job of it, so I've no quarrel with it. I guess it's easy to portray a crazy person. He didn't need to make sense, and anything he says is okay. And so you can't say, well, he did a good job of it or he didn't. It just that's just irrelevant. A lot of the characters were really unsavory. As a sign of the times, they got garbage all over them, and then they stank. And so, what are you going to do? All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
Oh, I know this is going to go very quickly tonight. Okay. Hey, it sounds like my connection's a little better now when I had to reconnect. So we'll go on to will be Virginia and V5F. Even though you only saw half the film, you get full treatment. So go ahead, you get full attention. So go right ahead. Nobody else has seen the film, so whatever the half that you saw of it is what you get to discuss. Go ahead. I'm sorry. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, well, like like I said, I started wanting to pay attention, and I did pay attention to the actors. The actors are, of course, good. I mean, the characters seemed like at least, multi-dimensional characters. That doesn't always mean they're going to be the kind of people that you necessarily like, but, there's a sense about caring about them, and I did. I felt like some sympathy towards them as characters. I really liked the guy who played Don Quixote. He was very lovable, and I think I enjoyed his character the most. The film director, Toby, I think his name was, I got a sense that he was the kind of character that you start out not really liking very much, and then by the end you liked him. And some of the other characters the same way, and that there was definitely an arc going on here, and I'll just admit that I was a little distracted. But it looked to me like even the minor characters were, it was, I think Gilliam is good at getting decent performances out of people, and that he's good at getting, striking visuals, but to answer your dissertation earlier, my issue with some directors who do these fantastical things is that they don't work within a reasonable set of parameters, and therefore lack creativity in some ways, because creativity has to be governed by a problem or set of problems, and if you just sort of do whatever you feel like doing, and you spin things around or turn them on their head whenever you feel like it, just to confuse people, that is not really creativity. And I'd have to watch this closer to figure out whether that's kind of what was going on. But I'll admit to not having seen a large percentage of his movies, and it's probably because the ones I did see were not just ones that made me think, oh, geez, I really want to see more that this guy did. I saw Time Bandits when I was a kid over and over on cable, and I think the reason I watched it over and over again because it was kooky, it had these wacky characters, but don't ask me what the plot really was. And it was probably one of his more coherent plots. I did see 12 Monkeys when it came out. I went and saw it with a friend of mine who really loved it, and I think we went and saw it a couple of times, and I remember it being pretty good. It had a fairly coherent plot. It was very weird. There were moments where you're you don't know, how this character got there or what's exactly going on. But it was more. It just had more of a through line or a focus to it, even though it was very, very. It wasn't really whimsical. It was more just very, very, almost like hallucinogenic, sort of weird. And it had a good, it just had a good focus on who the main character was and kind of what his mission he was on or whatever. Once he kind of figured out what was going on. But I've just found that other stuff, the few other things of his that I've watched, I just find they've got lots of potential good parts. But there's all this kind of obnoxious stuff going on that keeps you from really feeling like an emotional connection in some way. And this movie, because of the character and the story, Don Quixote is a very sympathetic character and a very likable character. And so, I think there might be something here. So I'd be willing to go back when I'm a little bit more in the mood and pick up and try this. Since you mentioned our friend Stanley Kubrick. I think Stanley Kubrick definitely distills things down to a razor-thin kind of plot that leaves the actual theme of the movie almost up to the viewer, whereas something like Terry Gilliam, it almost seems like he's got something in mind, but he's going to make you figure out what it is. And I've noticed that people who do stray from the normal formula, which both of those directors want to do, they tend to make fewer movies overall, because their movies do take longer to make because they are unconventional, and I think at times they are getting movies made by sheer force of will. They just tough it out till they get the movie made. And Stanley Kubrick was so incisive, and he had such a vision. Once he figured out what he wanted to do, even if he couldn't put it into words, he knew that he could get it on film. And once he knew what he wanted to do, he was just the immovable object, and he would just stick with it until other people were like, yeah, that guy's got to know what he's doing, and they would just keep giving him money or whatever, or wait however long he wanted them to wait. So it's an interesting parallel, and truth be told, I can only watch about 2 or 3 of Stanley Kubrick's movies. I don't like most of them, or I've seen enough of some of them to know that they're ones that I know I'm not going to want to watch. So I've only seen a couple of his movies all the way through. I think about 3 of them, and I'm just smart enough to know not to go there on most of the others, so I just don't. But 2001 is one of my favorites, and it just happens to be that he directed it, and he is a genius. Back to net, NV5F.
Well, there you go. I'm with you on that. There are films, as an example, it's funny because we're talking about a different director, but we have a tendency to know Kubrick a little better than Gilliam, I think. But I've tried to watch Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise, and that's a difficult film to watch. It's a fascinating film, but the scenes drag on forever. I think there's a scene with Sidney Pollack playing pool with Tom Cruise, and it just goes on, and it's just not a good scene. But it's still in the film, and it goes on forever. And I find that a very difficult film to watch. I have never seen Barry Lyndon, believe it or not. I heard it's a very good film. It's a very long film, but I've never seen it. So I'm with you. I haven't seen everything he's done. I like some of his earlier commercial films, so, but he hated them. So, you look at Spartacus, and, that's a good film, but it's somewhat pedestrian, although it's well produced and memorable, and everybody knows the film. But it's not entirely his style. He walked in and did the film. But at any rate, yeah, I'm with you. I don't always find everything perfect. I don't worship every director, nor do I find every director's work that I do like as good. Orson Welles is another example of that. He made some really fine films, maybe the finest film ever made, and he's made some terrible films. And there's, interestingly, I think there's very little in between. There's very little moderately good films that he did. But he is considered the genius with Citizen Kane. But with that, there's the Wind. I forget what it is. There's several things that he's done that are just absolutely awful. But where do you go from up, right? I mean, your premier debut film, you make the finest motion picture, considered arguably the best motion picture ever made. What do? How do you best that? You can't. And I think that was a problem for him. And I think these directors, too, if we talk more generally, they realize that, and they have to deal with it, and they have to understand and compartmentalize their own hubris and celebrity status and abilities and the strain that goes into making the next film, upping what they did the last time. And then when they do fail or they do stumble, they have to live through it. That's really tough to do. And I think these guys and gals, but mostly guys, when they end up with this and they have a successful film like they do, the expectations are so much higher that if they come up short, even by a little bit, they could be miles above and better than many other directors, but come up short because now the critics and the audience is now expecting something even better than what they did the last time, which was way above par. That's hard to do. That's hard to establish and deal with. You could have all the tea in China and all the money in the world, and if you're making movies in this particular case, and you make something bad after doing something exceptionally good, how are you going to feel about that? How are you going to live with yourself? And with the popularity that you have enjoyed, now you got to live with the antithesis of the notoriety, the fact that you made a bomb. All right, well, we were talking about actors, and I do want to mention I think this cast is wonderful. I've never been a fan of Adam Driver. I haven't seen him in much, but I did enjoy him in this. I think the first thing I ever saw him do is the Star Wars movie, and I think it was the character, not the actor, that I disliked. So I can differentiate between the two, and since I didn't have a lot with Adam Driver, I think he's made some poor films that I have not seen. But I think it was a great choice for this. His Toby Grummet character is really nicely done. He does evolve and grow. He tries to live through this situation, fish out of water. Very, very interesting. I liked him a lot. Jonathan Pryce, who I'm watching in another series, an older series called Taboo, I'm watching right now, and he plays the CEO of the East India Company in England. He does a wonderful bang-up job in that, and I think he's wonderful as Don Quixote. He does a really great job in this, and he's very memorable and a lot of fun. Has a wonderful presence on stage. Another one is Stellan Skarsgård, who plays the boss, who we've also seen this one in a Star Wars thing, Andor, I think it's called. He plays one of the underground leaders in that. He does a wonderful job in that. He plays the same basic character, I think. I've only seen him in these two roles, but I really like him in that. In this one, he did a nice job. Some of the other characters, minor, I don't know who they are personally, or even who they played so much, but they were all done fairly well. What was it? I'm just looking through the list of actors here, if there's anybody that really shows up. Jason Watkins as Rupert Toby's agent, pretty good. I liked him. I guess that's it. There's a few others that are in there who just appear and disappear in there. The one guy that's in there that is the prisoner who keeps showing up and as background kind of helps Toby get by, gets him through things, is kind of an interesting character. He doesn't say much, but he just acts as literally as an agent of progress through the movie. So, anyway, okay. Well, let's see. I'll go ahead and open it up and ask if anybody else would like to join us, or if there are any comments by anybody so far, I'll let you go ahead and comment. Please come to your call now.
November 8, Whiskey Romeo, NAWWR, Romeo and Grapevine. I'm in and out, Tom. I just want to say hi. I heard your voice there. Good to hear it. NAWWR.
Hey, Romy, thanks for letting me know you're out there. And very good. I think there may be somebody else out there. They may have doubled. I'm not sure. Is there another person out there who wants to check in or make a comment?
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato.
Oh, good. I was going to call on you anyway, Bill, at some point. So go ahead.
Okay. I did want to comment. Yeah, and you know, I've said this before, but the language is kind of rough. However, I did start watching it. I like the music. So I always kind of like the way the music is done. So I will comment on that. And it is interesting watching the director. So anyway, I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Always helps me on the movie. And I you know, we're talking about the music in the third round and stuff and effects. Haven't got to the special effects really yet, but I do like the music. W5DLT.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Bill. It was Spanish National who did the music. It's not somebody I recognize at all, but I do like the music quite a bit as well. And I would recommend to anybody that wants to tackle this film to go ahead and watch the two documentaries. I've only seen the one, but I suspect the second one probably is even more illuminating to help you understand what the film is kind of about and how it meshes with the director himself and with the cast. It's really worth it. I would watch the film first and then watch the documentary, and you'll get kind of an interesting perspective on it. I think you'll also be more appreciative of the film rather than just being kind of pushed back and say, I'm not sure what I'm watching. You'll be able to better understand and get a overall broad understanding of what happened, both in the film and its production and its tenor and its direction and all of that. As a story, it helps a lot to see that. So tomorrow sometime during the day I'll watch that second documentary. I'm very curious to see how that works out. It's just pretty. One thing I will mention too is really interesting about the film is that when watching this documentary, I'm watching different actors playing these same roles and basically in the same scenes. It's just kind of bizarre. It's a fish out of water. Johnny Depp in there playing this role, and then seeing Adam Driver in the actual film is just kind of weird. But, I mean, that happens. People play different roles in the same plays. Or different people play the same roles in different plays. They're in the same play. You know what I mean. Getting late. Okay, we'll go on to the third section, which is special effects. So I'll take my two compadres here and see what they have to say about it. I think we've kind of brushed on it, but if you got something you would like to add, that's fine, or have any final comments. So I'll start with Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, final comments, special effects, whatever you'd like to talk music. You got it. Please make your thoughts known.
Yeah, this is WB50ZL, Brenda. Well, you tend to think of special effects as being in sci-fi movies with lots of expensive, but you don't. And the ones that have really there were some really icky things we had to look at, and the filth, the dead horse, that was pretty gross. I don't know how they did that. But I thought they did a pretty good job on it, on the whole. That's about all I have to say. WB50ZL.
DV5F, Virginia, your final comments. Go for it.
Alrighty, well, responding to your comments about the different actors that were in the different scenes, versions of the same scenes made over and over again, I could totally see Johnny Depp in this in the late 90s. This is so something he would have done. He was into quirky roles. He likes kind of edgy directors. So I could totally imagine him in that role. Not surprising at all. Of course, the production values here are high. Gilliam, in general, especially after the 80s, all his stuff looks pretty good. And I did think it had that kind of flat, low contrast feeling that a lot of modern stuff has that I don't like. I like contrast. I like films that look like film. And everything seems to have this kind of almost murky, cataract-like quality where you just kind of feel like you're looking through some kind of low-contrast, monochromatic kind of filter all the time, and this kind of had that feeling like they over-color key everything, like they over-time everything to where it all matches perfectly, because now we've got computers, and we can just tell the computer to make everything match, and so it matches too much, and it feels too homogeneous, and I get tired of that. I get tired of the overly homogeneous, high resolution, no film grain, no contrast. I get weary of that. Cool lighting and all that, but well done, but just kind of all sort of runs together visually. I did like the effect of the knight that was revealed to be like his friend, who was dressed in the mirrored, like disco ball mirror costume. I thought that effect was really cool. I enjoyed that. There was some neat stuff here. I think that there was some cool ideas. Like I said, maybe I'll make a little project out of this. I'll read Don Quixote, or I'll listen to it on audio, and I will watch the documentaries, and I will watch the movie all the way through carefully, even through all the F-bombs and other things that maybe aren't my favorite. And I'm with Bill. The language in movies, it's the 21st century. Everywhere you go, everywhere on YouTube, everywhere you go in public. I used to be mortified when I heard the F word, and now it's like, a lot of people say it every third word now. So it's the sign of the times. It's what we have to, it's just the style of things, and I find it irritating and obnoxious, but there's a lot of things in Terry Gilliam movies that I find irritating and obnoxious. So I just added that to the list. Anyway, the music seemed pretty good. I like movies with real music in them, so I like that. I may go back and kind of discipline myself to give this a chance on an academic level at the very least. Back to net in V5F.
All right, well, Virginia, I compliment you on your willingness to go back and check it out. It doesn't mean that you'll necessarily like it any better. You may not. You may like it even less. But, good luck. I hope that you find some glimmer of hope in the film. I rather enjoyed it. I want to go back and do basically the same thing that you're saying. I want to pay more attention to it. I want to see if I can glean more out of it as I continue to mull over what I saw last night. So it's still kind of coalescing. I'm still not entirely sure that this is going to be one that I'm going to like or love in the future, but it's had me thinking about it all day today, And the more we talk about, the more I think about it. I want to do another run on this thing and see. And most films don't do that. Most films that I watch, I go, well, that was entertaining. I'll watch it again maybe. Very few of them are films that I want to actively watch. There may be a comedy or something you say, oh, it's funny, I'll watch it again, and I'll watch it again, and I'll enjoy it for the comedy aspects. But films with the creative aspects and the ones that are attempting to do something above and beyond just the standard bourse affair, they seem worthy, and some of them can be pretty precocious, and I agree with you that they can be films that just are art house films that try to be art house films, and they're self-aware, and you just go, okay, that's enough, I've had enough of that, or some gimmicky thing that is in, that seems to work, and people like it, but then it grows old fairly quickly, and that includes language. I agree with you there. If that's the only vehicle you got, or it could be, then that's disturbing. I don't mind a little swearing. I do find it kind of unusual in things like, what is the series? Deadwood. Deadwood, every other word had a swear word in it. They didn't talk that way. So a little bit probably would have worked okay. A lot of it is somewhat distracting to me, so that's an example where they went way too far. It wasn't necessary, and eventually what you just end up doing is just ignore it. You're not listening to it anymore, and it loses its impact very quickly. So if you're going to use a convention like that, don't overdo it. Use it for shock value or to make a point or whatever, then move on. I didn't think it was all that terrible that was in this. I thought it was within the character's parameters. It makes sense that the character would act that way. He's director. He's going crazy, and Terry Gilliam swears like a sailor himself. So maybe that's okay, because it's sort of a little bit of a story of somewhat autobiographical in its own way, too. So who knows? Let's see, special effects. Music, I love the music. I thought it was really great. If I can find the soundtrack out there, I might get it. It's very Spanish music, of course, but it's really good. I really liked it in the film, and it really shines in this film quite a bit. One of the things you mentioned was the monochromatic type look and the cataract type thing which you give. There is a certain aspect of that, but that's where they were filming as well. There is a humorous thing in the first documentary where they have a storm that comes in and it causes floods, and it completely changes the color, desert-like color in Spain, to a little more green, and the soil's been turned over and everything, and they go, what do we do? Do we go and we refilm all this stuff? And we're already behind because of the storm, and it all looks different. Plus, it's cloudy out. Now, it was sunny when we were filming the scenes, and they're trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do next to fix it. So even then, it's kind of hard. Oh, by the way, what Gilliam did is he says, I give up. We're just going to go and do close-ups on the faces, and we're going to bathe it in light as though it's the sun, and that's how we're going to get around this problem. And we're moving on. And he used two expletives along the way. So all right, let me think. What else do I want to say? Music good. I love the scenes. There were... It is more colorful, believe it or not, as in the night scenes towards the end. If you get a chance to see that, you'll see what I mean about that. You're right, though, he has a tendency to go into that monochromatic look in his films. But this one does depart from that towards the end a bit. Not completely, but a bit. You'll see that when you watch towards the end of the film. I think he's changing and evolving a little bit as a director. I don't think he's using as much in that area. But we'll have to see, because even this film is somewhat old, especially with how long it took to make. But at any rate, there you have it. Okay, well, with that, I'll go ahead and ask if anybody has any other final comments. Please come with your call.
November 5 Sierra, Quebec Alpha.
NV5F.
Juliet Delta Whiskey.
Very good. Well, I got 3 out of that. I think there may be a 4th. I'm not sure, but I got N5SQA, ND5F, K5JDW. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's start with Ron, N5SQA. Ron, go ahead.
Hey, after a long day of all kinds of trainings and stuff, I just haven't turned on the radio because it's a little earlier than I normally get here. But I just wanted to say hello. I have no idea what movie you're talking about, and I'm not going to listen anymore. But I've only been here for about 3 minutes. Keep up the good work. N5SQA.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for letting us know you're out there. The movie we watched this week was The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from 2018. It's Terry Gilliam film. It's very unusual from what you would expect from Gilliam. So if you like that sort of thing, that may be a film you want to watch. Okay, NV5F, Virginia, go ahead.
Okay, you used the term self-aware, and that's actually what I was thinking earlier. And I didn't recall it when I was talking, but there's nothing more self-aware than a movie about someone making a movie, and especially when the movie takes forever to make, and you know that can be a problem, and I think that can really affect something when it is too self-aware, and that might be maybe what his movies are that I get frustrated with, because it's kind of like life. It's like if you try to go through life too self-aware, you just end up overdoing everything. You're trying too hard, and I know this from experience. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Back to net, NV5F.
I agree with you. You can go too far. To me, I don't think he did in this, but, you know, everybody teaches his own. But, yeah, that's exactly what can happen. Okay, K5JDW, John, you have comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, and hello, bye to Ron. We actually worked an event late summer, and I just want to say hi, bye to him. And let's see, I just want to tell everybody I enjoy all the comments. I hate to be a freeloader, just listen in the background. I'm not much of a movie person. I've probably seen 1/100th of movies y'all have, well, maybe less. But I enjoy all the comments. It kind of trains the mind a little bit. The brain kind of tries to, wants to assess things. Anything we look at, we try to evaluate and think about stuff. And I don't know, you make me want to see some of the movies probably, whether they're good or not. The comments are always all good, and I appreciate it. Anyway, K5, JDW.
All right, well, thank you, John. I love movies. I enjoy movies quite a bit, and I think a lot of people do. I like good movies or challenging movies. I really do. I'm not a pedestrian movie fan. I'm not one, and I'm sure people I like Superman, the one with Christopher Reeves in it, because it's a fun movie and it's well done. But you can keep all the other, comic book movies, and I just don't find them very engaging, and part of that's my fault, because I guess many of them are, but endless battles and that, it's just pointless to me. And people with unlimited powers can do anything, anywhere. There's no challenge to that. I don't find those type of films interesting at all. I prefer ones where with humans doing human things. Even in the science fiction films, the best ones are the ones where people have to figure out on their own what they're going to do to solve a problem under great stress or capabilities, you know. So that's what I like to see. I want to see something with characters that I care about and a plot that I want to see end with a conclusion of some sort. And we don't get a lot of that in movies these days. So the ones that are out there that do that, I would like to talk about them because I'd like to see that more often. And of course, we like the train wreck too. It's part of the reason why we like Afterglow is that science fiction movies are predisposed to disaster. They can go wrong very, very easily. Fantasy films the same way. Gilliam's film is an example of that as well. This thing was a bomb. People didn't like it because it was so weird. I liked it for that very reason. I want to figure it out a little bit more to make sure I continue to like it overall, or decide that I wasn't paying attention as much. If I wasn't, I need to better get it. But the questions it asks and the way it handles it are kind of interesting, and I want to go back and pay more attention. If a film will do that for me, then it's worth it. It means that it gives me a chance to think, and it makes it better because it allows me the opportunity to challenge myself, and I like that. Okay, give me a second here. I'm going to try and find what our next film is going to be. I saw something. I don't remember what it was. It's in my docs list, so hang on. Let me find it. Okay, this one I think you're going to like. I don't think we've seen this one in quite a while. We have seen it in the past, but it did pop into free over on YouTube. This one's more in line with what we like as far as science fiction. So next week's movie will be, are you ready for this? Robinson Crusoe on Mars from 1964. How about that? It runs off of another French famous literary, in this case, a French literary genius. So, Robinson Crusoe on Mars is next week's movie. It's on YouTube. I'll send out the info, or you can find it on your own. But it is on YouTube for free, I think, with ads. That's it. We'll call this one done. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking through this. We almost made it an hour and a half, even though there were only three of us talking. Mostly through the thing. It's 11:52, so we didn't do too badly, I guess. So everybody have a good week and rest of your weekend. I'm going to take it easy. I ran the island today, so very interesting. I have to say, I enjoyed running on the coast and the trails and everything out here. Retirement's done well for me. I've enjoyed it, and I do like the weather here. Of course, I'm waiting for the hurricane bad weather to come in at some point. Hopefully not here, but always a concern here. So that's the one thing when you live close to the Gulf. Stay safe and treat everybody. Have a good evening and have a great rest of the weekend. This is KE5.